Working with Publisher 2010 to talk about a couple of things here: columns, story jumps, and adding graphics. A story jump, if you look in here, we have a column here, some blank pages here. It's continued. You could have continued on page or continued from page. When you see these three dots in a text box, it means it's continued. I click on the three dots. I go to page 3. If I click any place, it gives me the thing. And then I can position, make it go over to here, make it deeper if I want to. So let's say we want to cover the page. I'm going to talk about separating this into 3 columns later on. So we've got that. I'm going to go on to the dot here, over here. I'm going to click over here, and let's just say we want something here. Just doing this for visual effect. We're on page 1 here. I want to say that this is continued on page 3. So I just right click inside here and I go to format text box. I click on text box. I'm going to say continued on page. Say OK. And if I zoom this up just a little bit, it says continued on page 3. Now we're on page 3 here. We want to say where it's continued from and what page it's continuing on. If you see something like this one line here, we'll talk about this later, fixing things up. So I right click in here, I go into format text box, check off these 2 things, say OK. So it says continued from page 1, continued on page 4. I can make this a little deeper if I want. I can affect margins if I need to. And if I don't want this word plate here, and if I go into here, you have 2 things that you could do. I could pull this just down a little bit. It's going too low now. I could also do something with the spacing here, like this paragraph. It's called changing the leading. And I'm just going to click on this paragraph here. I'm going to right click. I'm going to left click on, it's not showing this in here. Sometimes right clicking doesn't always catch it. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to go onto the home tab, paragraph group, and it says line spacing here, or I could say between lines. And if I say OK, it tightens it up. You could see it in here. So you're not getting this little orphan page here. If I were doing this, I would do it consistently throughout the whole column here rather than just this one. Next thing, we're on this page here. Let's say we want to put this into 3 columns. You could have 3 text box columns, which is what I definitely do prefer. But if you're trying to get this done quickly, you got a newsletter that you're publishing within the next 2 hours or 20 minutes, you go on to text box tools format. And to do this, you click on columns. You just say 3 columns. It's done. I want to talk about graphics and other things here. If you're putting it in, what I like about working with Publisher versus Word is that you don't have to go crazy formatting with floating and things. So if I go to page parts, I do this. I want just the column width, pull it in here, and then I could just pull it up, move it down. I'm using the arrow keys, much easier. And if I want something to go across 2 columns, I go into page parts. I click on this. I've got this. It actually almost fits over 2 columns. I could just go pull it down, pull it over here. So I have it fitting in there. Of course, you're going to have to do your tweaking and stuff. And what's really nice, like in this here, it says continued on page 3. But if you insert a couple of pages, what it's going to say here, continued from page 1, of course. However, when you're on here, you go down there, I hold it here, it's going to say on page 5. One thing I will suggest, I know when you're doing the title page for your newsletter, you're going to try to get as many news stories on there. If you're going to continue it on page 3, continue it on page 3 and 4. Don't go hog wild saying going from page 3 to page 7 to page 12 to page 19. Disconcerting to the reader. However, a lot of places do this, so it gets you to flip through the pages and to see the advertisements that are in there.